Welcome, everybody, to the EAP Counsellor Podcast. I'm your host, Lou Lugston. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Lynsey Byrom, a clinical psychologist with over 15 years of experience supporting people and workplaces to build healthier lives and cultures. Lynsey has worked across defence, law, finance, health, and corporate sectors and offers everything from one-on-one therapy to large-scale psychoeducational workshops and seminars. She's deeply passionate about helping people live rich, full, and meaningful lives while navigating stress, pain, and pressure. And she has a beautiful way of making mental health practical, human, and workplace relevant. Lynsey, thank you so much for being here, and I welcome you to the podcast today.
Thanks, Lou. It is wonderful to be here.
I'm so excited as well because I've been wanting to interview a psychologist, a clinical psychologist for a long time, and I was so excited to meet you and learn about all of the fantastic things that you do. So thank you for saying yes to
Thanks for the warm welcome.
My pleasure, absolute pleasure. Everybody, today's podcast, you're going to learn so much from Lynsey. She has so much experience. And as I said, I'm really excited to be interviewing Lynsey because we're really going to learn a lot from her experience. And again, as you know, we're all about being practical, being proactive, being preventative, and sharing information on this podcast. So today, everyone, you're in for a good one. Lynsey, you've worked across some pretty high pressure industries like defence, law, and finance. From your perspective, what are some of the biggest wellbeing challenges you've seen and you're seeing in workplaces today?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll probably start off with just some statistics really is that 1 in 5 Australian workers are currently experiencing some sort of mental illness or disorder, most commonly depression and anxiety. So your mood disorders, your anxiety disorders. And so that means if you're working in a team of 10, you've got 2 colleagues that are currently experiencing some sort of mood disorder, an anxiety disorder, a substance use disorder, eating disorder, or a trauma-related disorder. And then you add on to that, furthermore, there's 1 in 6 of us that are experiencing some sort of mental illness symptoms. So that's things like your worry, your stress, your fatigue, and your sleep problems. So there's a lifetime prevalence where it's 43% of Australian adults are experiencing some sort of mental illness at some point in their lives. So this is widespread across workplaces. And so you think that you've got these workers turning up really struggling. And then you add on top of that challenges that are specific to the workforce or the workplace, I should say, sorry, where you've got things like, well, first of all, as I was just saying, people trying to show up, presenting as their best selves when they're not, when they're hurting, when they're struggling.
Yes.
And then you've got a lot of stress and burnout. This is what I'm seeing a lot of at the moment. Demanding workloads, people feeling under-resourced. You've got lack of role clarity or insufficient training. People feeling micromanaged or a lack of autonomy and trust in themselves. You've got workplace traumas and incidences. And then you've got this organisational change, which is definitely contributing to stress and burnout in workers. 50% of Australians also experience bullying. So you've got a lot of interpersonal challenges.
Absolutely.
That are affecting people's well-being. And what we saw from COVID is people working from home, and that brought a whole different set of challenges that threaten people's well-being. There's isolation, there's feeling of disconnect and loneliness, difficulty switching off from work mode to home mode, difficulty staying focused and motivated while at home. And what I'm also seeing more sort of in people entering the workforce now, and also with some of my clients that are sort of leaving defence or sporting careers, is this increasing focus on a search for purpose and meaning in their work.
Yes. Yeah.
And when they haven't quite got that match right, the impact that that has on well-being.
And
So,
it has a significant impact, doesn't it?
oh, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
And
there's a lot of identity linked with some careers. So yeah, if that's out of kilter, then the well-being of the worker can, yeah, severely be impacted.
absolutely everything that you just mentioned there, and it's like an endless list, isn't it, um, of issues, challenges, concerns that people are facing and working through. It's multi-layered too.
Oh,
Yeah, it's massive. We're very lucky we have people like you out there helping our employees and business owners and leaders as well. Do you think, or have you noticed? You did mention COVID
mm.
just before, and I know I have noticed a lot or an increase in mental health challenges, in my private practice during COVID, but especially post COVID. Um, what has changed, would you say, in recent years post pandemic and or with the hybrid work? Like what changes have you noticed?
I think it's when one of the things that I'm noticing is when workers have got um, a feeling of control over their work arrangements, they seem to thrive. When some workers are being forced to go back to the office post-COVID, and they're then feeling a stress about having to return back. Some are really enjoying the hybrid environments. Some people really struggle working from home and they can't wait to get back to the office and have the water cooler talk. And there is
Yes.
no one size fits all. And so
No.
having flexibility in those sort of workplace working structures is really important. I think during COVID, absolutely, I was in a sort of a booming industry, unfortunately,
Yes.
where because I think people were trying to, there was just so much anxiety around that time, so much stress, so much grief and pain. Uh,
Mm.
there was a lot of people just really struggling.
Absolutely. Yeah, as I said earlier, I noticed that too. And sadly, it hasn't diminished as such. Yeah, we still have so many people suffering, struggling,
Mm.
feeling challenged, and just trying to navigate to the workplace. And the changes there as well, of which there's lots of positive with that. But
Mm.
there's also a lot to navigate, with that as well. So it's definitely been a challenging 5, 6, however many years. Yeah, it's huge for people.
And if work is one part of our life, but it's also where we spend a large amount of our time. So if that one part of our life isn't going quite right for us, the impact of that or the toll on that of our well-being is
Mm.
massive. So it is an area that's really important to, to get right.
Absolutely. And as you say, I mean, we spend more of our time, like generally speaking, more of our time at work than anywhere else, like
Absolutely.
over
We
the
can
span
spend,
of a lifetime. So
yeah.
we do want to get it right. Yeah, well, like we absolutely do. You mentioned too, when I first introduced you and you were talking about just some of the industries that you've worked in and challenges that you're seeing. A lot of those challenges that you mentioned link in with psychosocial risks and hazards. So I
Mm,
think, going forward with legislation that's always been there, but with,
mm.
regulations coming in to Victoria, later in the year, there's a lot that's going to, a lot of positive is is going to happen, fingers crossed, as those risks and hazards become, I guess, just a lot more known, to
Absolutely.
everybody. And, we're all working on the same thing to create psychologically safe workplaces, to minimize psychosocial risks and hazards, and to, really create environments where people can perform at their best or they can
Yeah,
thrive.
absolutely.
Whatever that looks like for them. Yeah, so hopefully, we're all heading in the right direction. You run workshops and presentations for workplaces in a range of sectors. And I know when we have had our conversations, you've mentioned workshops around stress management, right through to, say, communication skills. What
Mm.
kinds of topics are resonating most with teams and leaders right now, would you say, or what do you find workplaces are asking for?
Yeah, well, just given the challenges, the wellbeing challenges and work challenges we've just discussed, a lot of the topics that seem to be really sought are those stress management, relaxation skills. It's all about that burnout prevention and also recovery is really a hot topic. There's this real, as you just said, thriving. I love the word thriving. We want people to thrive in the workplace. And in order to do that, we have to be the best version of ourselves. So, workshops on building general self-care, well-being skills, lifestyle factors like sleep
Mm.
um, are really important. We talked about interpersonal communication skills. We spend more time with our colleagues sometimes than our family and friends. And so if we can't manage those collegial relationships, it can really take a toll on our well-being. So having interpersonal skills where we can have respectful communication, assertive skills, boundary setting skills, for leaders, how to give constructive and fair feedback.
Yes.
Things like any of those communication skills are often asked for. Um, that psychoeducation about mental illness. We want it just like we know what the physical hazards are in a workplace, the psychological hazards, so that this becomes just destigmatized, common knowledge. So building up education around what is mental illness, but also building a competency about, oh, how do I respond to a staff member when they are struggling?
Mm.
Do I know how to refer them to the EAP? Is there Are You Okay posters around the workplace? So workshops around that. And I guess the other one that comes to mind is about values work. So
Yes.
that's getting, what passions do workers have? What drives them? What motivates them? What qualities are important to them, so that they've got some meaning and purpose in their work. So they want to show up to work. And it
Yes.
means that leaders are getting the best out of their workers because they've got happy workers.
Absolutely, and aligned workers, to the values. You're
Absolutely.
speaking my language there. Well, everything
Yeah.
that you mentioned, values. That there's no point having values, workplace values, if they're not used, looked at, discussed. They're guiding lights, and it's such a proactive way to lead, but also, it's your culture right there.
Mm.
And then
Mhm.
so bringing them to life makes so much sense.
But it can make team cohesion so much easier if you look at it from a strengths-based model. It's not all members in the team have to be the same. It
No.
can be this person really thrives when they get to be like this, whereas this person really wants to be like that. And
Yes.
so getting them to be in the best versions of themselves, and then the whole team benefits. So in terms of productivity and
Mm,
performance, everyone wins. But
absolutely.
identifying that is
And that's
important.
what we want. It's the win-win, for
Absolutely.
everyone. Because when our people are winning, the business is winning, and their clients, customers are winning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, education and the workshops and the presentations that you do, they're not only so needed and not only really interesting as well. Like I obviously you're talking to the converted here, but everything that you mentioned, I think everyone needs to know
Yes.
that information, and it's just part of, again, thriving culture, thriving people, and it's part of too learning about ourselves, how we tick, what we're about. So then, we
Absolutely.
can contribute in ways that are really meaningful and purposeful as well.
Yeah, self-awareness is massive.
It is, isn't it? For
Yeah.
business owners and leaders trying to improve staff or employee well-being, but they're unsure where to start, because I know, like, I come across a lot of people that are keen, they're interested, but they don't know where to start. What's
Yeah.
one small practical thing that they could do this week to make their workplace feel safer and more supportive?
It's a great question, and there's no right answer, and that there's no
Yeah.
one perfect right
No.
response. Every workplace is different. But if we think about what is a safe workplace, it's one where staff feel they feel seen, they feel heard, and valued, and they're comfortable to take those risks and share ideas and contribute fully to their work, right? So it's about them being able to express concerns without fear of negative sort of consequences.
Yep.
So it's about doing one thing that can lead you to that end goal. And so, it's about workers feeling valued, seen, or heard. So it may be giving them some acknowledgement, some positive feedback, checking in with them. If they don't seem to be quite themselves, then pulling them aside and having a check-in, or if something's just gone down, organizing a debrief with them, asking questions, giving them that message of you're interested in them, you're curious about them.
Yes. Yeah. Curiosity is everything, isn't it?
Oh, it's one of my key words that I say a lot.
I do too. I feel like it's an everyday word and probably like an every hour word as well. When we get curious, we are able to take that step back to really look at things from all different angles. And what I love about it too is we remove judgment. We remove, the negativity, any biases, when we just open up to, I wonder, I'm curious and I wonder. Let's find out. Let's find out together. I think, in regards to then building really solid, safe relationships, it's such a great positive way to go.
Absolutely.
And what about for employees? So for someone potentially feeling overwhelmed or emotionally exhausted, and I know that you would be working with a lot of people feeling like
Absolutely.
that, as I am as well. What's one thing that they could do to support their own well-being during a tough work week?
Well, look, I could spend a lot of the time answering that question, because I think it's really important that everyone develops a toolkit, and which has lots of tools in it, obviously.
Yeah.
One tool that I find that lands well with clients is going through an exercise where they identify the 6 different categories of well-being needs. So that's your physical needs, your mental needs, your emotional needs, relationship, spiritual, and sensory needs. And we don't want to overwhelm people and say they've got to meet all their 6 needs. But if it's been a really tough week, it might be a worker sitting down and just mindfully checking in with themselves and going, what do I need right now? And it may be that they need physically, they need to do something. And so I always think of the needs as being addition or subtraction. So addition may be, I really need to move. I've been sitting down at my desk all day and I just need to go for a walk. Or sometimes it may be, I've just been running around nonstop and my physical need is to rest and to put my feet up. And we can apply that addition and subtraction to each of those. Do I need more social contact because I feel like I need to reach out to a friend, or do I feel like I'm physically or sorry, socially exhausted, and I actually need to put a barrier in and say, actually, I'm not coming to that party tonight. I actually need to stay in.
Mm. I love it. Um, I love a good toolkit. But I also love that your example there, with the what do I need more of, what do I need less of?
Mm.
That's not adding anything new in, is
No,
it? It's
sometimes it's actually subtracting
yeah, it's
is the most
just
important.
yeah, it's looking at how am I feeling? What is happening? What isn't happening?
Mm.
Getting curious again, bringing that word back
Mm.
in, and dialing back, in an area or some, and or what do I need more of? And a lot of people, dare I say, rest, and just looking after themselves. But I think that's a really nice way of looking at it too, and it's really practical.
It's I feel we don't want to overwhelm people by going, I don't have time for self-care, or it's another thing I have to do.
Yes,
Actually, no, it's about not doing things is
yeah,
self-care. Bringing
absolutely.
ourselves up, slowing down in our very fast-paced society.
Definitely. And I think too, a lot of people, and I'm generalizing here, but they sort of get on life's treadmill of
Mm.
fast paced, and there's really no breaks, if we're on that treadmill. And when we're going at that pace too, we sort of can forget that, oh, hang on, I do need to pause sometimes and look after myself and take a rest. It's so nice to give yourself permission, to slow down, take a look at things, and make decisions from there.
And I think this is where that values work can come in really nicely because we can then ask ourselves the question of why am I doing this?
Mm.
Why am I rushing around? Why am I being so busy? Is it literally, have I subscribed to keeping up with the Joneses? Or is this actually in line with my values? And so then sometimes when that question comes up of what do I need more of, what do I need less of, we can go, yeah, actually, I don't need to be doing this. This isn't important to me, but my self-care really is.
Absolutely. That is a fantastic activity, and um, you know, suggestion for the toolkit. And yeah, I would love all of our listeners to really, to write that down, and have a go at it, because I think it's a very empowering activity to
Mm.
do. And I'm sure everyone or anyone who has a go at it will really gain some interesting insights,
Mm.
and we'll have some takeaways in regards to what to do less of, and or something just to do a little bit more of, so that they're operating, or so that they're functioning better, in
Absolutely.
a particular area, or a few areas.
Because if they spend a bit of time with it, what you can actually do is get different options under each of those different categories. So you're building up a buffet, and at different times, it's like you can go to the buffet and go, okay, what do I want to take this time? And then
Yes.
in 2 weeks' time, you might come back to the buffet and go, actually, I'm going to pull out this one, right? So the more that you put in, the more options you've got down the track.
Love it. Oh, I'm ready for the buffet. I'm really looking forward to hearing you explain ACT in when you're answering this next question, because I think
Mm.
a lot of people may have heard of it, may not,
Mm.
and but might not exactly know necessarily what it is. So
Mm.
you use acceptance and commitment therapy, known as ACT or ACT.
Act.
Yes, in your clinical work. For those who aren't familiar, can you explain how ACT works and how it might apply to navigating, say, stress or pressure in the workplace?
Yeah, sure. So ACT is it's a science-based, evidence-based psychotherapy, and it focuses on helping clients develop skills to respond to difficult thoughts and feelings, to also respond to challenging situations in ways that are values-based, so that they're less reactive and more grounded in their responses to challenging situations. It's a very practical therapy, and it can be broadly applied to not only your mental illnesses such as depression and anxiety, but as well as to mental illness symptoms, so your sleep difficulties, your stress, and to life's challenges, to interpersonal challenges and things like that. So it's widely applicable. And so if we think about in terms of how it might apply to navigating stress or pressure in the workplace, it's I do a lot of this with clients. We spend a lot of time in this, and it's as I said, it's very practical. So we might spend some time in session actually practically doing exercises where there'll be mindfulness-based practical exercises to work with the feelings of anxiety or the feelings of stress, the physiological sensations that come with that, the tightness in the chest, the butterflies in the stomach, or the muscular tension. And we'll offer different ways of responding to these feelings so that they don't hijack the worker, so that they're not responding in ways that can result in a downward spiral. So things might be, if people are feeling very stressed, they might go, oh, I'll go home and have that glass of wine, and then that becomes two, or they'll turn to other substances. And it's about going, okay, so what else can we put in the toolkit? And we'll go through practical exercises. The other part of work will be around what's going on up top. So, cognitive exercises, so that when your mind's whirring and it won't switch off, we'll look at, again, mindfulness-based exercises to change the way that people relate to those thoughts so that we don't get engrossed in them, we don't get hijacked by them. And instead of our behaviors being governed by these thoughts, these stress thoughts, anxious thoughts, we come back to the values. We're grounded and we add choice. We empower the worker to go, actually, how do I want to respond to this challenging situation that's consistent with my values, as opposed to I'm being hijacked by this anxious thought that's telling me I've got to do X, Y, Z. So an example might be an anxious worker going, oh, I'm grounded and I'm noticing my mind is saying, I've got to stay late and clear all my emails. And noticing this fear of I have to do it, or otherwise I'll be letting people down. And it's about that ability to go, but what are your values?
Yes.
My values are about self-care. My values are about taking care of myself, which means my behavior that I'm actually going to do is I'm going to leave when everyone else does. And those, not urgent emails, wait till the next morning.
So good. And, what just came up for me, a couple of words as you were talking through that, boundaries. It's a lovely way to investigate your boundaries, get really clear on your boundaries in regards to your values as well, and really learning how to be aligned and what that feels like too. And the difference in the body and in the mind when we are in alignment versus when we're not, because it becomes very clear, doesn't it, when we're not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We call them towards moves in ACT, where if we do an action that's values consistent, we instantly feel, that sense of, this is me being the best version of myself. I'm showing up how I want to show up as a worker or as a parent or partner or whatnot. But we get that feeling. I often call them the warm fuzzies, but it's that, it feels right in that sense.
Love it. There's so many things in your toolkit. It's amazing. Everyone needs to go and see you just to,
We all need our toolkits, that's for sure.
We do. We absolutely do. Thinking about psychological safety in the workplace, I'm really interested to know, what role do you think psychological safety plays in performance, not just mental health? And whilst thinking about this, what do you see are the signs potentially that a workplace might be unsafe even if it looks fine on the surface?
Yeah, great questions. So if we think about, well, what is psychological safety? It's an environment where your workers feel comfortable taking risks, comfortable being creative, sharing ideas, and expressing concerns without a fear of negative consequences. They're not being judged, humiliated, or punished. And so, with that culture of trust and respect, individuals feel safe to be themselves and contribute fully to their work. Without that, they're not going to perform to their full potential. So, if you think about this through a growth mindset, you want the best out of the worker. Their performance is going to be heightened if they're in a psychologically safe workplace. And so we have this term presenteeism where you've got workers, they're showing up, but then they're under delivering on their potential. They're not being contributing to innovation of the business because they haven't got capacity to do so. So absolutely, you've got this presenteeism impact on performance. To answer the second part of your question about what are some of those signs, I guess it's the reverse of all of that. You don't see people thriving in the workplace. You don't see people feeling comfortable to raise concerns or share ideas. They're not taking risks. There is another sign is their fear of making mistakes. That part of growth is trying something new, being curious,
Yes.
taking a risk. But if there is a fear of making the mistake and being ridiculed or punished, people make mistakes, they cover it up, they try and offload that onto someone else. So those can be some signs. But mental illness, especially anxiety and depression, is now the leading cause of sick leave. So that's your absenteeism.
Yes.
And your long-term work incapacity in Australia. So that's the compensation claims. So, we were talking before about people showing up but underperforming as presenteeism. Well, you've also got the absenteeism. They're just not even showing up at all.
Absolutely. And that both have a massive impact on a workplace, on the team, on everything.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating as well because I'm interested to know, like what your thoughts are on this. For me, I'm in and out of workplaces. I'm talking to lots of business owners, leaders, employees as well, all of the time. And I don't think it takes very long to, whether it's get a feel, to notice, to hear, when a workplace, it might look fine on the outside, but things are happening, on the inside that isn't or that aren't conducive to psychologically safe workplaces, to team members thriving. What are your thoughts? Like, do you think it's, you can pick up on it relatively quickly or not necessarily?
Sometimes it's the things that aren't being said.
Yes.
It's the conversations that aren't happening. It's the check-ins aren't happening. It's the people that don't know what the other person's partner's name or whether they've got kids or what they did on the weekend. There isn't that support, that team building sort of safe environment. Everyone's getting in, heads down, trying to get through their work, that there isn't that extra conversation. Fear of how they may be judged. They don't feel like they can be open and honest and be themselves. So I think there's a lot of what's not being said, what's not being asked. Absolutely.
Great answer. And yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that too. There's definitely things that, we can pick up. There's, and there are things that we might hear, see, but again, as you said, the things that aren't said and that don't happen really do sort of, shine a spotlight on I guess how healthy a workplace is in regards to the psychosocial safety and just, the ability for people to thrive versus just survive and turn up because they have to, and not, want to go the extra mile to be part of something that has the potential to be great. You often present on skill building, which I love, like assertiveness, responding to angry clients, and goal setting. How important is it for businesses, in your opinion, to invest in these practical interpersonal skills as part of well-being?
I think it's a very wise investment. I think it's costly to not invest in interpersonal skill development. If we just talk about the financial costs, mental illness in workers costs Australian businesses $11 to $12 billion per year. And that's things, as we've just talked about, the costs of absentees, staff taking sick leave. It's the presenteeism, the increased mistakes, reduced performance, and productivity. You've then got increased staff turnover rates and the associated recruitment and training costs with that. And then you've also got the compensation claims. So to not invest in producing psychologically safe workplaces is costly to businesses. So it's, and as we also just spoke about, we spend a lot of time with our colleagues. So, and 50% of Australian workers have experienced bullying. So it's really important that any conflict or discord in collegial relationships is addressed. But sometimes it's not the interpersonal conflict or challenge isn't from our colleagues, it's actually from our clients, our customers, or our patients.
Yes.
And so, if you've got an anxious patient or an angry client, then it's also really stressful for a worker to go, well, how do I manage this other person?
Yes.
And so as businesses, it's really vital to have workers or staff that are competent in their communication skills, their interpersonal skills. So they've got this competence, but then from that, they have a confidence that if these challenges arise, they're like, yep, no, I can trust myself to be able to handle this. Some people, they just naturally are really great in these situations, but my experience is that people don't know what to say or do.
No.
So that, being able to be led through different examples, it really empowers them to be able to go, yeah, I've got this.
Absolutely. I just wrote down two words as when you were answering that question, which is, a new tagline, competence equals confidence. I love it. And it's so true. When we build competence, when we build skills, knowledge, capacity, all the skills that we need to be performing the role that we have been employed for, that can't not boost some confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
Often in ACT we'll talk about the feelings of confidence come after the actions.
Yeah.
And so it's like the behavior's got to come first. Often we'll go, oh, I'll do that when I feel confident. It's like,
Yes.
well, where are you going to get that confidence from your local supermarket shelves? It's like, no, you've got to build the skills, the competence and the behavior. And then once you do that, you go, yeah, I feel confident in my.
We just have had a little Zoom, a Zoom hiccup, but I think you're back, Lynsey. Are you back?
Yes, I'm back.
Yes. Sorry, everybody. Zoom, has its moments. It's very, well,
Technology.
it's windy, it's rainy, it's freezing. So I think Zoom might have said, come on, like,
I know, winter has struck.
It has, but we are back. And yeah, absolutely agree. Competence equals confidence. And I love that through your work with your clients, using ACT as a modality, as part of the toolkit. It's makes so much sense, and it's a great great way to develop confidence, the doing part. Yeah, they're very lucky to be with you and learning those really important things. This is, well, it's not a tricky question as such, but like I'm curious to learn your thoughts here. If you could offer one message to workplaces right now, something every employer and employee needs to hear when it comes to wellbeing, what would it be? And I apologize, trying to say what would one thing be? Because there are lots, but in your opinion, what's something that would be fantastic for everyone to hear?
I think one of the things that I hear more and more and more is about stress. And I think stress is such a common threat to our well-being. And so one little, I guess another tool, if you want to put a tool in your toolkit, is if we just think about stress, first of all, the word was borrowed from engineering principles, where stress is used to describe the amount of load or weight a structure can take before it reaches its breaking point. So in psychology, we then applied this to humans, and it describes the state that we can get into when the load we are bearing and the demands of our lives exceed our ability to cope. And so I often will think about humans as being like a bridge. And so it's about, okay, how much load am I bearing? Am I starting to get wobbly? Right? We don't want to hit breaking point.
Yes.
And so I guess one message or one question I would say to everyone, whether they're an employer or an employee, is what can I do to take some load off my bridge, and or what supports can I add to the foundations of my structure, my bridge? And if we can do one or the other or both, then we've worked towards reducing our stress and improving our well-being. And you could link that back to those 6 needs that we just talked about.
Yes, as well. I love it. That is fantastic. And I didn't know that the word was borrowed from engineering practices. That's really fascinating. And it's a great way to talk about stress. And it's very human friendly, to have conversations from that viewpoint. And again, another really practical tool, way of thinking, strategy in the toolkit. And I hear the word stress all the time as well.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that when we're trying to find that one thing that we'd like to share, stress seems to come up in, oh God, it feels like every conversation that I
We're being
have.
pulled all
Yes.
directions all the time.
Yes,
Demands are just going up, up, up.
definitely. That's fantastic. Thank you. Lynsey, thank you so much. Your mix of deep clinical knowledge and real world workplace understanding is such a gift. You've given us so many, not just one, so many practical ideas and reminders too that well-being doesn't have to be complicated, but it does need to be intentional, which is really, really important. If people want to learn more about you, your workshops, your supervision, and your therapy, where can they find you?
So my website is probably the best place to find out about me and my work. I'm sure that'll be in the show notes, but it's lynseybyrom.com.au. And that has information about my individual therapy, the workshops and presentations I offer to businesses, but also the supervision that I do with psychologists and other allied health professionals. You can send a message to me via the contact page on my website, as I'm always really keen to, not only with my individual clients, which is tailoring their own toolkits, but
Yes.
also businesses and going, well, what's the workshop, what's the presentation, what's the gap, where's the need, and tailoring the presentations or workshops to what the topics are that workplace would really benefit from.
Wonderful. And you're based in Geelong?
I am based in Geelong.
Yes, so we're very lucky in Greater Geelong to have you. And in regards to your client work and say workshops, supervision,
Mm.
etc. How do you provide your services? Are you in person, Zoom, Teams? What
I'm so
what do you do?
I'm both. So I'm face to face in my counselling rooms in Belmont,
Yes,
but also online. So I'll do presentations. I'll travel to businesses, but I also have done them via Teams and
wonderful.
yeah, through video calls, and that's also been Australia wide. I've
Great.
delivered those.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the EAP Counsellor Podcast today. I have got so much out of talking to you. I'm absolutely sure that all of our listeners have as well. Have got some new tools in the toolkit, or their toolkit definitely has been boosted today.
Mm.
So thank you so much for your time, for your knowledge, and for just working in this space. I think, we're very lucky to have people like you working in this space, helping people and, just working hard to help people thrive. So thank you for all that you do, and thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful experience to be here. So thank you so much for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Have a safe rest of the day and make sure you stay warm as it's very freezing here. Thank you, everybody. We will be back with another episode soon. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you. Bye.